Hey guys, Bill McCracken here. We're going to show you real quick how we actually prep for winter. Got a lot of questions about this from some of my bee fans, but we're basically here. I'm a little bit late getting out this year, but it's start of middle of November right now. And what we need to do is get some more food inside of these colonies because they need to be able to sustain enough food through the winter. They will not come out once it starts to get cold. They won't fly. So all their food stores need to be inside the hive. So I follow the rule, very old traditional rule, but I only take 50%. So they get 50%, I get 50%. That usually means they will survive through the winter without too much concern. But I always feed up anyway, give them lots of food, make sure they're going to make it without any problem. So let's take a quick peek. You can see there's a few of them out today. They're not real busy. It's about 62 degrees. But I think a few are just out foraging just to see what's still left out. Most of the trees and stuff don't have any further blooms, so they'll probably be pulling up tree sap. But let's crack a hive open. This is what the top of a hive looks like. I don't know if you can see down there. Let me get this top box off so you can kind of see. They do have a lot of reserves, and I'll go over in just a second what these boxes mean. But this is usually my top spacer box where I give them food or allow them some draft through the top of the box. But you'll see bigger boxes and smaller boxes, and these bigger boxes are what are called brood boxes, where usually the queen likes to lay. We like to drive new eggs down in these lower boxes, and then as the colony starts to get bigger, you may add another brood box. And then these are called honey boxes. They're much shorter, about 6 inches tall, and this is where we try to get them to store up their honey, and then these are the boxes we pull off. So again, 50% rule, which means I probably had 3 or 4 more boxes on here during the summer, spring and summer, and into fall, so that way they will build that out. So a little bit of comb here on the top. I'm trying to get rid of this and separate it so the bees can move throughout the hive. But let me try to pop one open for you and kind of see. And all this yellow stuff, it's called propolis. A lot of people like using it, putting it in their teas and stuff. But basically what they do is they seal the hive. So you can see all along the edge here, there's just yellow propolis all along here. And that's so they can seal in between the boxes. And so all the draft and whatnot will get basically sealed off, and the bees will stay warm. But yeah, they've got these things really sealed up, and this stuff is like glue. You think Elmer's is sticky. This stuff is absolutely sticky. There's a few bees here checking me out, trying to see what the heck's going on. Why are you tearing my hive apart when it's supposed to be winter time? But I won't try to disturb them too much, but I want to try to show you what kind of the winter stores look like. But you can see they've been in feeding on this one, so definitely good that I get out here with some fresh feed. And you can see a whole bunch down here on the second frame, so they've started going into their stores already. So that's why we like to feed them during the winter. So again, they'll have all these usually filled with honey, and the queen will stop laying probably late August, September, or probably sit down in September. She'll stop laying eggs. So whatever the hive has is kind of a quantity going into winter. That's what they'll have, and they got to survive through that. But you can see down in there, and you can see they're hungry. You can see them eating here, and working some of the honey and trying to get food. Supposed to come along and just open a few of these up for them. You'll see them start feeding on it. Thank you. It's tasty. So the queen, there's one queen, and a little more education here. All of these are female. So the ladies are the one in this culture that actually do all the work. The male bees, called drones, they have basically kicked them out by now. And what they do is the drones come in and try to get back in the hive. It's nice and warm. The lady says, I'm not having it. They get kicked out, and ultimately they die, typically with the first freeze. So there should be no more drones in here. All the males are dead. The queen is down, way down in the box somewhere, buried. And, you know, she'll begin her duties probably next March-ish or so is when she'll start laying eggs again. So we're going to get some food on them. And again, this is just a simple sugar cake, which is just made basically by water. I'm mixing with a little bit of sugar. So I'm going to put this down first. And this is more moist sugar. So it's kind of what I consider a quick feeding. I know they've been hungry. And I don't like leaving this tinfoil on there. It's not stuff they would find in nature anyway. But this sugar is really kind of moist. It helps get kind of a little boost going for them. So you'll see them jump on it here in a minute. And then I also come behind and I add dry sugar, because that is really good to help with moisture. And also, you can tell it's a 4-pound pack, so this should last them several, actually a couple months. And then the first warm day in December or January, I can come back and see if they've eaten through this or not. And if they have, you can see it's just as simple to roll this in and put a new one into the hive. Now, during winter, I won't be this slow and lazy. Basically, I'll have all this cut and ready to go. I'll pop the lid and drop it and close it. So I don't want any really significant temperature drop to happen in the hive. So it is a nice day. It's about 62, 63. So let's go ahead and save to put the hive open, and then it's really that simple, just to close it back up. Now, some people, beekeepers, do is they'll put newspaper down and basically make a big sugar mound, just like you see here. I don't like doing that. I like getting a little bit moist, at least during the pre-winter, pre-cold months. They'll get them extra boosts of feed, and then I'll just leave it in the pack just like it is, and then all that moisture, if there's any moisture coming up into the top of the hive, it'll come to the sugar and it'll get cakey. And it'll start to form up. But during winter, I'm in and out of a hive within like 30 seconds because I get everything ready to go and make sure that the hive temperature doesn't drop. So I get a lot of questions like, okay, so what do they do during the winter? Bees are just like penguins, where they will basically come into a ball. They'll get into a big circle, and they'll work their way kind of from here on up, and they'll come all the way up the hive, and they'll start right about here in the winter. They'll hang out, and then they'll come up to the very top. Remember, this is an empty, but they'll hang out right about here in the middle, and they'll come up and eat along. This is where the sugar line is. Come up and eat and drop back down. And so they'll stay in that little ball area, and the bees on the outside will work their way to the inside, get warm, and then they'll work their way back to the outside, kind of like, again, like a penguin does. But there are some ones that die off. They're not all going to make it, but the idea is you keep the majority with a strong, healthy hive, and they have enough to get them through to the next summer period, or the next spring period. But today they're pretty calm. I'm not bringing any smoke in. I don't like doing that unless necessary or they're real aggressive. My bees only really get aggressive typically when I'm doing what's called splits in the summer. They don't obviously like having their house torn apart. And then they seem to really get aggressive right before storms. So I've tried to stay out of the hives before that, and that way it keeps them calm. You got to think of it personally too. If somebody is coming into your house and smoking it out, it's gonna make you grumpy. But the reason why we smoke is it causes the bees to actually go into a involuntary reaction where they calm down, And what they're doing, in effect, is basically it's simulating a forest fire. And so if they think that the forest is on fire or their house is on fire, because of the smoke, they'll start immediately feeding so they have food in order to travel. And so that allows them to all calm down, refocus on getting regenerated with food, and then that allows me to work them very quietly. But like I said, they're calm. None of the bees right now are hitting or smacking me or charging me with trying to sting me. There's not one on me at this moment. I'm standing in front of 2 hives, kind of blocking their entrance, which most new hives would probably just be thumping you right now. But what they're doing on the front here, if you can just see them, they're actually cleaning the front of the hive. There's a few guard bees here. You can see them kind of come in, back out. They're checking out what all this noise is in the front of the hive. It's the beekeeper. Bees do get to know the beekeeper. They get to know my habits. They know, my scent basically, and they start to understand who I am. So, if every time I come out extremely aggressive, then they're going to get responsive to that. And so that's why I always try to go nice and slow, give them time to respond, and just make sure that they're staying happy. There's no reason to come in and, fly through a beehive and make every one of these bees just upset at you. They're a culture, they're a part of nature, and, to me they deserve respect because they are definitely providing a value for us, which is just so incredibly valued to overall plants and culture. And then they also do provide us honey for our consumption. So I'm on the 3rd hive here. This one's a little more active. You can kind of see down there where they've been feeding in the middle. There was a food tray here, picking up a few remnants. So these are a little more anxious here at the top. A few more are starting to get on to me, but that's the bee colony. I got about 10 or so in this particular setup. I've lost probably 5 since this of October last year. About a year's time, I've lost about 5 colonies, and some of that is just nature. They sometimes just go, and there's no explanation. You could be doing everything right, and they just decide they don't want to be here anymore. So they pick up and leave, and sometimes other times they unusually die off for some reason. Could be somebody sprayed a field around my particular beehive area. I didn't know about it. They went over and foraged on those plants, whether it be crops or trees or grass. Somebody's sprayed their yard for dandelions. They got into that pesticide and come back, and if they make it back, and they start spreading that through the colonies. So so important we get rid of pesticides. But that's day at the bee yard. If I get more questions, I'll try to answer them, but pretty long video on what goes on with the typical beekeeper. Take care. Talk to you soon.